Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Yeah.
The views expressed by J. Michael McCoy are the views of the hosts and guests of Max World Live, and not necessarily the views of Webcast One Live, its staff, its management, the cleaning crew, Dave the electric guy, the guy who cleans the skywalk, the woman who brought in the cookies, the management staff of Hubble Real Estate, the parking lot attendant at Keck Parking, the wait staff over at Miss Kitty's, the coffee crew at Frederick's, the man in the street corner willing to work for food, Rob Spearman, Max Crabb, or anyone else of sound mind. Should you be offended, provoked, intimidated, shocked, confused, or just made to think independently, log on to maxworldlive.com right now. It's your voice we want to hear in Max World. And now, live from the palatial studios of Webcast One Live, your host, J. Michael McCoy.
Thank you, Michael Libby. Back at 4 minutes after the hour of 2 o'clock. We'll date this show as some information that may be shared today will be pertinent and timely. It is the 16th day of June in the Lord's year 2015. Max World on a Tuesday, of course, with Tom Coates by my side. And today our special guest is the professor of economics at Morningside College, former, not Senate candidate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep, senator candidate. Came in third.
Second.
I'm sorry, second. Boy, did I get corrected there in stereo. And a guy I really like, Sam Clovis. So it's nice to have you here, Sam. I know you've been busy bouncing around WHO the last couple of weeks.
Yep.
We sure do like having you here. And here you're the guest. So
That's good.
You can just relax and just talk.
All you have to do is ask questions, and I'll give you answers, and we'll go from there.
And if you want to talk to Sam, phone lines are open at 244-0077. That's 515-244-0077. Now, we want to say up front that Sam has taken a position with the Rick Perry campaign.
That's correct.
But I don't worry about that with Sam. Yes, I expect him to say good things about Rick Perry, but I also think you're going to hear him say the truth and good things about the other Republican candidates, because kind of Ronald Reagan's rule,
right?
You don't bash the other candidates on your own side.
11th commandment.
The 11th commandment. So, but we will get to do some bashing because we'll talk about Hillary.
Well, Mac, I told you just when we were talking about Sam, I said, it's not unusual, Sam, for us to have guests on that are smarter than we are. But I said, your IQ might actually beat both of ours put together.
He did say that.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
You're a professor.
Right.
So you're highly educated. You're humble because you're teachable, and you're in economics, which,
right.
You lose me after 2 decimal points.
Well, the thing about economics is called the dismal science, and that's because it's taught by dismal people. And so well, not in my case, because we have a lot of fun. My kids, we enjoy ourselves a great deal in class, and I try to make it relevant to their lives, and it makes a big difference.
I would have loved to have had you as an economics professor versus some of those that I had in college. I remember this one time, this guy spent 15 minutes on a giant graph on the board, and he finally stepped back and he said, "There, you have it." And all of us were, we were dozing like that picture of Bill and Hillary I just showed you. And I said, yeah, we've got what?
Well, there are a lot of graphs like that, circular flow, the utility graphs, the production possibility frontiers, all of those things. And what really counts is supply and demand. And once you teach them how to draw those graphs and they understand what is represented there, then the rest of it's downhill. You really don't need to know a lot more than that. You can get into a lot of the nuances of economics. And one of the things I've been exploring is the behavior of how people behave in certain circumstances. And I think this is one of the things that's very difficult because we have a lot of Keynesian economists out there that I call them the talking pinheads on television, and they get up there and they talk in their own language, and they do that because they don't want anybody else to know what they're saying. Mm-hmm. And if they were to speak the truth or to get up there and talk about reality, which most of them have never envisioned or enjoyed, then they would come away with a lot different conclusions. And I think that when you start talking about reality, and the economy that we have today, you start to see some very fascinating numbers start to emerge. And I saw today that the Congressional Budget Office had issued a new report talking about how dismal our economy is going to look through 2040, Tom.
I saw a similar number, Sam.
It's just incredible. I mean, we're talking about debt ratios.
74% right now, debt to our economy. That number I think that you're looking for is 107% by 2040. And that, in fact, I made a note of it because I knew you were coming on the show today. Now, obviously, that's a long-term projection, and a lot of things can happen, Sam. But I mean, given the unwillingness of our politicians to address the single biggest issue in my mind, which is the entitlements, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and now if we don't unwind it, Obamacare is part of this package, and the exponential growth in these programs and the lack of willingness to make every day that passes that we don't make a fundamental change in this makes it that much more difficult. They kick the can down the road, and every time a Republican starts to speak up about we need to do something about Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all of a sudden he is savaged, not only by the Democrats, but by the media.
Right.
And he wants to throw Granny off the cliff. Your thoughts on that? In my interpretation right? Is entitlement reform maybe the biggest single factor and the most dangerous third rail for politicians to step on?
Well, yes to both. I think, and let's answer the second part first. I think it is a dangerous place to go. I know in my Senate race, there were 2 or 3 of us out of the 5 or 6, depending on the day of the field, that were willing to talk about that, because I said the sooner Republicans step up and show the courage to talk about entitlement reform, the sooner we're going to get this issue discussed. And I think, myself, Matt Whitaker, Scott Shaban, we're all willing to do that because we saw this as the largest detriment. We're talking about off the books, perhaps $100 trillion unfunded liability.
Exactly.
And we'll never be able to pay that. We'll never be able to do this. I have long said that there are ways to keep our promises to those. I'm 65. I'm a Medicare guy. I'm a TRICARE for Life guy. I get that. I have wonderful, health insurance. And this fall, I turned 66, and I'm going to apply for Social Security. So, I mean, I paid in. I should get it. But what I'm saying is that there are people who are 40 years old and younger who ought to be given the opportunity to go away from a defined benefit program to a defined contribution program, make that money theirs, that is transportable, takes them with them everywhere they go. Fundamental tax reform to come in and allow people then to save their own money. First, get rid of the corporate income tax in the country, and then migrate away from the 16th Amendment mandated income tax we have now. Go to a fair. I would like to see a fair tax, but I think a flatter tax with the fact that we can get rid of 79,000 pages of tax code.
Well,
I think
agree
it
with
would
you
be
on
good.
both counts. I'd prefer the fair, but I would take a flat.
And then when it comes to Medicaid, it's very interesting you bring this up. I had a very long and detailed discussion with a state legislator yesterday. I won't name who it was. Very strong conservative, but a person I think has got the best interest of the state of Iowa in heart. And our discussion circled around Medicaid. And he says, Medicaid is going to kill us. Because every day we continue to go out here and find new ways to expand Medicaid, which increases the cost to Iowans. And then worse is that we're watching this funding coming from the federal government. It's an enticement. It's not just an entitlement, it's an enticement.
That's the bait on the hook, isn't it?
It is, bait on the hook. And then so what we end up with, the ratio is out there. And until we are able to start curtailing the spending in Medicaid, we're going to end up, because that's a must pay, no matter what happens in the economy. And this state, the state of Iowa, let's talk specifically about this. The state of Iowa is going to go through the next 3 to 5 years is going to be devastating, because our farm economy is going to go in the toilet for the next 3 to 5 years.
You're right.
We are
on
looking
again.
at grain prices that are and commodity prices that are going to be down. All of these things are going to lead to incredibly.
Now, I'm predicting, by the way, Sam, a bottom in 2016 on the commodity markets. That does not mean a V turnaround.
No. I think it'll take a long time to turn around, because we have to change land use. We have to do a lot of other things. Markets have to square. It's international. It's dynamic. We have all of those factors to consider.
And that's if the economy holds up halfway well.
Exactly.
If it goes into the dumper, which is a good chance.
Very good chance
that
we'll
it
talk to
does,
that
and
here in a moment.
it stays in a malaise.
I think that we already are. And I think since 2007, this has been a dismal thing. And one of the numbers that you mentioned there, Tom, and I want to bring this up, is that over the last 65 years, the United States has averaged 18.5% of GDP in revenue, as average.
Mm-hmm.
From now through 2040, 17.4%. If people don't realize what an incredible, devastating number that is, that tells me that we are really looking at a never recovering back, because our tax base is not going to expand to accommodate that, to get that back up to 19.5%,
Well,
20%.
further emphasize, there was a manufacturing figure that was released just yesterday, Sam, and if you put that on a chart, a short-term chart, it shows we are in a declining pattern on manufacturing, alarmingly so.
Yes.
Not just a small one, an alarmingly dismal chart on manufacturing in this country. Now, strong dollar, been the order of the day,
Yep.
and that has an impact, but it isn't the only thing that's working there.
Well, a strong dollar is, a lot of people say, well, we want a strong dollar. No, really you don't. You want a weak dollar, because a weak dollar says you're going to do better overseas. But
see, Obama started this years ago.
Yep.
And now everybody else is playing this currency war game, and we're going to continue to play it for a while, and everybody else is racing to the bottom.
Right.
And so by virtue of a default in a fiat world, we are at the top right now and probably going to stay there for a while.
Well, I still think the dollar is a reserve currency of the world and will remain so. I don't have I'm not skeptical about that. But what I do feel is that we're losing buying power. And this is the comment I made yesterday on the radio, filling in for Simon Conway. I made the comment, I said, people need to understand this does have a dramatic impact on your standard of living. And and we can get into the Greece thing, and we can do that here, but I think all of these, let's put a bow on this first part here. Entitlement reform has got to be done, and we can do the same with Social Security that we're doing with Medicare. We can go out and put those into individualized accounts. We can do those things out there. We don't have to change retirement age. We don't have to do any of that, but let's give people...
Would you change retirement age, though,
No,
Sam? Would you
we already
gradually...
have it. We're already on a ramp up to 67 or 68 already.
Is that fast enough?
Well, yeah, it's pretty fast enough.
All right.
But I do think that what we really need to do is structurally, first things first. I tell everybody, and I've talked to my candidate, I've talked to other candidates, and I've told them, I said, number one priority, if you had one silver bullet to shoot, that silver bullet would be to drastically reduce corporate income tax and allow repatriation of that money that's held overseas back at that rate.
Mm-hmm. Have a moratorium on any kind of taxes to bring it back.
Exactly.
That's a great proposal. I agree with you 100%.
If you have one silver bullet, that's the one to shoot, because that changes the dynamic of the manufacturing industry, changes the dynamic of our cash flow in this country. Even though the banks are cash rich, and we can get into some of the nuance there, but that one thing changes everything. And everybody said, well, how does that affect small business? Well, small businesses pay taxes like everybody else.
It rolls downhill.
And guess what? Taking your marginal tax rate, if you're a small business owner like I am, or you are, or whatever, imagine taking your marginal tax rate from 23% to 10%. What would you do?
Yeah, it would be a revolution in this country. We already hear squeals that the corporations aren't paying enough, that the wealthy 1% that are paying 40 to 45% of the tax in the country aren't paying enough.
It's a false premise for that argument.
Well, of course it is.
It's a false premise.
I agree.
No, it just fascinating. I'm sorry I've been talking to you. I haven't allowed you to ask a single question, Max. So,
Sam, that's okay. You're making my buddy happy over here, because I can't talk this language with him.
I enjoy this kind of. I know most people are probably bored with it, and we'll move on to other things.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that we did talk this for a while, Sam. Thank you very much.
Oh, you bet. You bet.
Tom doesn't have an equal when it comes to this conversation, and you are one of those equals.
Oh, he's more than my equal, but I learned
you're
from
in
him,
the same ballpark at least.
I understand some of the same
I'm
things.
outside selling hot dogs in the parking lot. You guys are talking,
And a very nice parking lot, I might add.
Thank you very much. All right. This brings us to our first break. We'll take our first break, and when we come back, as we said, Sam has taken on the position of state chairman for Rick Perry. But that doesn't mean that we can't talk about other candidates, we can't talk about the other side, and that your voice is exactly what we want to hear. 244-0077, 515-244-0077. It's your voice I want to hear in Mac's World, live on The Truth, 99.3. Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places, especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart, and it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
If you sit in the back pew or the front pew, it's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so call 244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
21 minutes after 2 o'clock this afternoon. Nice to hear from you. Salem Radio Network News at the top of the hour, and then the Steve Deace. Live, back in Afternoon Drive in Des Moines, Iowa, from 3 to 5 every afternoon following the opening act here. And I'm honored to be the opening act. You know who the opening act in Washington, D.C. is for the Rolling Stones tour? Rascal Flatts.
Really?
You know who Rascal Flatts is?
Yeah.
Can you imagine opening up for the Rolling Stones?
Sure.
I mean, because I'm opening up for Steve Deace, and he's as old as some of the Rolling Stones.
No,
I
he's
think.
not.
No, he's not. He's just a kid.
No, just a kid.
All right. My guest today is Sam Clovis, professor of economics at Morningside College, former senatorial candidate here in the state of Iowa. Didn't surprise me, didn't surprise you, but surprised a lot of people. You came in second.
Yes, I did.
Behind David Young. No.
No.
You're
Joni
in a
different race.
Yeah, sorry.
Joni Ernst and then Sam.
Yes, I got you. Did you go to her big barbecue?
Yes, I did.
Was that fun?
Yeah, it was a ball. I thought she did a great job. Her staff did a tremendous job up there. And it was perfect. I think that I told her, I had a chance to talk to her for just a little bit. She and I have become very good friends. And I told her that if she continues this, she'll have 3 times the number of people there. And that motorcycle ride issue is really something because she brought 320 plus bikes in with her from Des Moines. And Governor Rick Perry brought 74 bikes with him from Perry, Iowa. And so, 400 plus bikes there at the roast and ride, and the food was good, the entertainment was fantastic, and the speeches were great. And
you don't get anonymity anymore, do you?
I absolutely do not.
But that's okay.
It's the one thing, and I'll tell you this. When I had a radio show up in Sioux City, a lot of people, you go into Hy-Vee or you go to a store, and nobody knew what I looked like.
Right.
But when they hear me talk, they turn. The heads just snap around, and it's like the Mercats. Everybody's. I know that voice, and then
Mac, you had that too.
Yeah, and then people start to recognize the person, and then of course running for office. And I will tell you this, it's all over the state. It's just not in Northwest Iowa anymore. I've been in Eastern Iowa. I walked into a gas station one day, and a lady behind the counter knew who I was, and I was humbled by it, and because it really is. It's something to think of the reach that a person has when they get an opportunity to run for office. And I think that was the greatest thing that I got out of that, was getting to meet tens of thousands of Iowans. It was just spectacular.
That's awesome. I'm glad you're here. All right, let's go to the phones. The voice, the verse. Frank Thomas is on the line. I don't know what he wants to ask about because we haven't started the conversation.
Well, I got a question for Sam, but I want Sam to know before I ask it, I've learned all my question techniques from Tom Coates.
That's true, because what he's going to do is he's going to make a statement, and then he's going to say,
what do you think? Yeah, what do you think about that?
I know. At the end.
I know the technique. Go ahead, Frank.
I'm picking up on a theme that I've heard Max say on his show dozens of times, and it's this idea that we choose in life to be offended. Okay?
Yeah.
Well, what we have now in this society is we basically have a cottage industry developing. You see them every night on the cable news outlets, the media, these talking heads. They're professional talking heads who are proxy or surrogate offendees. And they're being offended on behalf of many times victimless crimes. For example, there is a story going on down in McKinney, Texas, and they're trying to spawn a story off of it about segregated pools. Because a cop put his knee in a young 15-year-old's back to restrain her on the ground. Now we're talking about segregated pools. There was a story over the weekend about somebody, a science lab professor, who made the comment that distinguishing men and women in the science lab as, when women come across a problem they can't answer, they just cry. Now, there was nobody particularly in the science lab that was offended by that comment. He wasn't directing that comment at anybody, but the man has since lost his job over it because we have professional offendees out there who are taking offense at nothing. So picking up on Mac's theme of we choose to be offended, what can be done about this?
Well, I think it's deeper than that. I think it's more profound issue than that, Frank. The whole thing. Let's go back to the progressivism. Let's talk about the whole theory and practice of progressivism, or whatever the right term is. What we're really talking about is that we're talking about villains and victims. And the more we educate our society, the more people that we send to college, the more people that we provide information for, the greater the number of victims that are available. Because those that are educated, in order to justify their existence, have to find victims. Then, once they find a victim, they identify a villain, and then there is vindictiveness that comes after that. So we have to attack that. That is the whole premise of progressivism, is this notion of villains, victims, and vindication. And this is really the essence of what you're talking about, because this is the essence of the PC movement. This is the essence of everything else that we see in our society, because what it does is a way to suppress speech. The ultimate goal is the suppression of speech. The ultimate goal is the suppression and isolation of people who disagree in population segments. This leads to the whole notion of identity politics. Mm-hmm. All of these factors are involved in this. This is a much larger issue than people just being offended for the sake of being offended.
Well, Sam, we have not seen the racial tensions in this country, I don't think, since the 60s. And this is not an accident. This Obama administration moved in. They put a guy like Eric Holder as their head of their justice, and that every opportunity in this country they have not let go by without trying to inflame the racial tensions. I think it is as destructive an internal activity as we have seen. Now, we can talk about debt. We can talk, we'll hopefully talk a little bit about the threat of Muslims internationally with the terrorism. Well, there's a lot of things we can talk about. But as far as a culture, I can't imagine much more being destructive, because I think even the common man is starting to have some racial discord within their lives where there needn't to have been. What do you think?
Well, I agree, but I think it's bigger, Tom. I think it is identity politics, and race is only one component of that. We have issues associated with gender, and you have to look no further than the Hillary Clinton campaign to see that we're going to vote for her because she's a woman, not because she's qualified. And I think that we have a lot of racial tensions, because what happens is, if you are able to excite the populace based on an identity issue, whether that be gender or race or age or lifestyle or any other number of factors there that identify people a particular way, then what you end up doing is you end up suppressing speech. And this is the whole goal, the suppression of speech, because free speech is the enemy of the progressive movement. And
the enemy of truth.
Well, no, truth is the enemy of the progressive movement,
Yeah.
because free speech will lead to truth.
Yeah.
And this is one of the reasons that religious liberty is such an important cause of mine right now, because I've been out here beating the drum because I think religious liberty is one of the most important issues in this campaign for presidency. And we have some marvelous and articulate spokespeople for this. Bobby Jindal has really taken this on. Rick Santorum has taken this on. Mike Huckabee, of course, Rick Perry, Carly Fiorina. I mean, we have a host of Republicans out here championing the cause of religious liberty, which I think is really, if you think about the First Amendment, Mac, if you think about the First Amendment, religious liberty is the absolute essence of that. We have a two-part problem. We have the Establishment Clause, which we can talk about establishment of state religion, but then we also have the Free Exercise Clause, which is what you and I talk about in our faith. We talk about the free exercise of that. And that free exercise is a 24/7, 365. It is not a notion that we have church on Sunday and we have 1 hour out of the 164 of the week. I mean, it's more than that. But think about what happens if you are able. Let's say the courts come down and redefine marriage. The issue is not marriage. The issue is not marriage, because the extension of that, the logical extension of that argument by redefining marriage, the logical extension of that argument leads us then to, when we go to our churches and we have a pastor, priest, imam, or rabbi stand up and speak against homosexual behavior, suddenly that becomes hate speech. And then churches begin to lose their tax-exempt status. They can be attacked on this issue. And what happens? They have to be quiet.
And we've talked about this. And I, in fact, the pastor that was in the seat last week, I said, are we just a little behind Canada? Because there have been pastors that have been jailed for reading from the Bible.
Yep.
There have been churches that are sanctioned. As you say, their very status is threatened.
Well, our chaplains are in the military are being persecuted.
Oh,
I mean, it goes for all of these things.
So
Sam Clovis is our guest today. In many things, he is a professor of economics at Morningside College. He was also a senatorial candidate in last year's Senate race, which Joni Ernst came in first and won the seat, and Sam came in second out of a pretty outstanding field. So congratulations to Sam. Question real quick.
Yeah.
Back up and give me the 5,000-foot view of this Rachel Dolezal thing.
Dolezal, yeah, Rachel.
What is it? What does it really mean? I mean,
I think it's really, frankly, I think it's a tempest in a teapot. We have a person who is struggling with, who has tried to take advantage of circumstances, has taken on the persona of a quote unquote victim, or an identity politics issue. She has passed herself or tried to pass herself off as being African American or black. She prefers black because she knows she's not African American. I mean, her own conscience won't allow her to take on the identity of African American. So, so what we have here is a person who's trying to exploit a particular set of circumstances to satisfy a personal issue, and I really do think it's personal. I think she doesn't have any interest in advancing the cause of the NAACP. She doesn't have any interest in advancing the cause of equality in this country. Not at all. This is about her. And I really think if you listen and watch what we see on the news, if you see her family, you see all of these other issues, what it really comes down to the fact is she's found a niche that she's comfortable in, a niche where she can exploit it. And I think this is really about her. It has nothing to do with anything larger or more embracing than the fact it's about her, which we find, unfortunately, happens to a lot of people.
Well, if you don't find your identity in Christ, you're going to have to find it somewhere else. And she's found her identity in the power of being, as you said.
I think it's sick. Honestly, I think she's got. I'm not a psychologist, but I think it's sick in the fact. I don't mind. I mean, she can take that identity if she wishes, but when she exploits it for personal gain, that's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
All right, Sam Clovis is our guest today on Max World. Tom Coates sitting in. When we come back, did Jeb Bush just get trumped? Big announcement today from the Donald. We'll talk about it. And do you think he'd make a good president? We'll hear from Sam and Tom and you at 244-0077. It's your voice I want to hear in Max World on 99.3 The Truth.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Hobbs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed. Fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're going to make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
If you sit in the back pew or the front pew, it's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so call 244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
Thank you very much. It's 22 minutes before the top of the hour. Salem Radio Network News at 3 o'clock. And then at 3:03, the Steve Deace from 3 to 5 in the afternoon. Back again live on Primetime Radio in Des Moines, Iowa, right here on 99.3 The Truth. If you follow me on Facebook, you've noticed some pictures posted today and yesterday with people climbing towers and antennas being put up. We're getting close. We are getting close. I'm still not willing to name a date. I always said we'd probably make it before the 4th of July, and I think that's about where we're going to be. But I think you're going to hear you're going to be able to hear us a little bit farther and a little bit stronger, I think, after this weekend. But that's in God's hands, not just because I'm a Jesus freak, but the weather makes everything. You can't let a 250-pound guy climb a 300-foot tower in rain. You just don't do that. So today we had a beautiful day, and we got with it and worked hard, and my kudos to Chris Roloff and Mike Carbone and just everybody that's involved in this.
Now, is Chris the one climbing the tower?
No. Chris and I both determined that there was a weight limit to climb the tower, and we were past it. But you know, Tom, you're not. You're not.
I don't know if you can afford my price, though, Mac.
Oh, just to see you up 300 feet yelling, I think it'd be worth it. All right, Donald Trump did what a lot of people didn't think he'd do.
Yep.
He actually got into the race today. He held up a book or something and said, you don't have to guess what I'm worth. I'm worth $9.3 billion.
Right.
I'm not going to take PAC money. I'm not going to take money from people who are going to persuade me to do one thing I don't want to do. I'm going to spend my own money, and I'm going to be the next president of the United States. You know him. You've talked to him.
Yeah.
You haven't just met him. You've had multiple conversations with him. Why is he the real deal?
I think he's a real deal because one thing I was really impressed with him, getting to know him personally, was fascinating because everybody has this persona of him on the intern or whatever the apprentice or whatever it was he did, and that bombastic type of personality. Well,
you're fired.
He's not like that at all. He's very charming. He's he's deferential. He listens to people. I've never seen him cut anybody off. I've never seen him once in a conversation be a jerk. And, he's been pestered. People wanted pictures with him all the time.
But can he be president?
Yes, I think he could be. And here's why. I think he's a person who is, and this is what I think is the essence of problems in politics today, is the influence of special interest. And I think there's almost no politician out there who can claim, sterility in that area at all, because there's special interest is going to feed you somewhere, because you're going to find somebody you're close to and you have an affinity for. Donald Trump is one of those guys that can say what all the other politicians want to say but can't. He's a person that can do what a lot of the other politicians want to do but can't, and he can do that almost with impunity. And I mean that because he is not beholden to anybody. And I think that is a huge advantage for him. Now, will he have enough to get traction? Because there's still a likability issue with him. Are people really going to, because the poll here in Iowa was that there are a lot of people said he would never vote for him. But he still has big crowds. He's going to be at Hoyt Sherman today, seats 1,000 people. I bet it's full.
I bet.
And because he's going to bring people in. He is a guy. I've seen it. I've seen it in action. The people, here's the thing. I think there are three candidates in the race that provide us unique insight into what's going on in this country. Donald Trump, Carly Fiorina, and Ben Carson. They are the three of the people who are closest to being third-party candidates and still being in the Republican Party. They provide people alternatives to the traditional politician, my guy included. Because, Rick Perry has served 14 years as governor. He was lieutenant governor before that. He was commissioner of agriculture before that. He was a state senator before that. Before that, he was hired by Southwest Airlines, and he worked in a cotton farm. So the guy has, he's got, street cred in a lot of other areas. But Those three provide options that we have not had in a long time. Rush Limbaugh talked about the Perot factor. He says that Donald Trump could have as much influence in this race as Ross Perot did back in the races that he clouded for the Republican Party.
He could lean it towards the Democrats.
Well, and Sam, I think we're all in this room old enough to remember the election that we're talking about, where Pappy Bush, which I think is ironic. I mean, here you go into the 1992 election.
92.
Pappy Bush is up for re-election. He's got none of the blue chip candidates for the Democrats wanted to run up against him because he was riding this crest of the Operation Desert Storm.
90% approval
and
rating.
so they had a little known Arkansas governor named Bill Clinton, who was almost cannon fodder for him, step up. And here you have H. Ross Perot, a very similar situation. In fact, you could conceivably have Jeb Bush, the son of that person. You could have Hillary Clinton, the wife of that person, and you could have Trump in the H. Ross Perot role. Now, here's my concern. I welcome him in. I think he's going to say some things. I couldn't agree with what you said more. My fear is that the ego. Now, I don't think he's got any more ego than Barack Obama or Bill Clinton or Hillary or some of the others we could even name. But I think it's out there for display and doesn't feel like he needs to hide that. I think he could get wrapped up enough in this campaign if and when, and likely, the Republicans don't choose him as their flag bearer. He could do an H. Ross Perot. He could come out, run that self-funded billion-dollar independent candidacy that would pull votes from our guy and end up giving it to Hillary Clinton, just as H. Ross Perot did with his 18 or 19% vote that he polled against Pappy Bush. Now, there was some personal animosity between Perot and Bush that created that situation, but unwittingly getting wrapped up in the excitement and everything with the campaign, I fear that Trump might not take no for an answer. What's your thought on that?
I don't know that I agree with you. I think that, and maybe I don't know him very well, but I mean, my read is this. Donald Trump, and what I've heard and what I've seen, and I have no reason to believe otherwise, I don't think Donald Trump is going to do anything to hurt the country. And I think that an independent run on his part, which would guarantee Hillary Clinton being elected, would hurt the country. And I don't think Donald Trump will do that. Because Donald Trump, at the end of the day, wants this country to thrive because it's in his interest for it to thrive. And so I really think that he is, I don't know that would enter his mind.
I hope not.
I think he would want to have a say. I think he would have a tremendous influence in that. And the other thing,
whoever the Republican candidate, whether it be Walker, your guy, Jindal, whoever it might be, would be very well advised to very early get with Trump, say, come in, I want you to be an advisor, perhaps even a cabinet member. I want you on my team, right?
Exactly. I think that you could have, because you could put Donald Trump in charge of special projects out there, like infrastructure. You know, here's a guy who could be innovative, could bring the ideas, rally the money, figure out how to do that, you know, all those things. And so I think those are the kinds of things that Donald Trump's good at, and those are the things he would like to do. The other thing is it's going to make Donald Trump richer, which is okay. But I really don't think that he's going to do anything to ensure Hillary Clinton gets elected because it's not in his interest to have that happen.
Well, I agree with you on one hand, and I hope, again, I think the excitement of a campaign and people hanging around you and say, oh, we need you, Mr. Trump, still could be a very powerful thing to overcome. I hope you're right that he ultimately wants only what's in the best interest of this country, and that would not be, and he would be the first to admit it, Hillary Clinton presidency.
Well, I've seen him around veterans. I don't think people realize the millions of dollars that he has given to Wounded Warrior and to a lot of the other veterans projects out there. I think that's a measure of merit for me that allows me to think differently about him. I've seen what Governor Perry has done for veterans, and it's just, to me, those are the kinds of things that I think separate a particular class of this group from others.
All right, Sam Clovis is our guest. We're coming back for our last view, and I want to ask you a question on this. John Scepter, a friend of mine, proposed, why don't we run a cabinet rather than an individual? We'll talk about that when we come back.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can give these grandkids back if you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We can help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places. Especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart. And it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you.
If you sit in the back pew or the front pew, it's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so call 244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
All right, 10 minutes before 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock is Salem Radio Network News, and then 3:03, the Steve Deace in Afternoon Drive once again. Now, I know you want to talk about some Air Force question, and we'll do that, I promise.
Okay.
But before we do that, Mike, my pastor, somebody in our church went to my pastor and says, I've got this idea. It's about politics. Who do I talk to? And Mike sent him to me. And I met this guy by the name of John Scepter. Smart guy. Loves Jesus. And his idea was that, and in this case, it was Bobby Jindal, but that the presidential candidate stands up and says, I want to be president. Here's my running mate. Well, that's not unusual. We do that after the convention anyway.
Right.
But why not come forward and say, and by the way, here's my Secretary of State, here's my Attorney General, here's my Health and Human Services, here's my Chief of Staff. So now when you vote, you're not going to get any surprises who I try to bring in under the carpet after January 3rd. Is there any viability to that?
Yeah, I think, and I don't mean this in any negative way, but I think it's a gimmick, and I think it's a good gimmick. I think it's a gimmick that some candidates would like to use. We certainly see it in third parties. You see the Libertarians will do this, and others, because they will talk about who they're going to bring in. And I do think there are. I've often talked to not this cycle, but I've talked to other presidential candidates in the past, and asked them. I said in private conversations, who are you looking at for Attorney General? Because those things matter to me. I mean, who are you looking at as Solicitor General?
Yeah.
Who's going to argue for you in the Supreme Court? Who are you going to bring in as Secretary of Defense? Who are you going to bring as Secretary of State? Those matter, and those positions matter, and sometimes they're willing to answer, and other times they're not so willing to answer. And I think those that are willing to answer tell me they've thought about it. I mean, the first question I ask all of these candidates, the very first question, and I've interviewed all of them, but Jeb Bush and Chris Christie, I've talked to all of them, and the first question I ask is what are you going to do to get the executive branch of the government back inside the Constitution? I want to know specifics. And if they have specifics, then I keep them in my good list. And if they don't have specifics, then I'm saying you haven't thought about it. You haven't thought about being president.
Yeah.
Because the very first thing you need to do is figure out how you're going to govern, and that's what kind of government are you going to put together. And does that mean you're going to restrain the EPA? Does that mean you're going to be able to go in there, and are you going to fix the VA? Are you going to make it your life's work to fix the VA? Are you going to do everything you can for our servicemen and women we're going to send off in harm's way? Are you going to do everything to modernization and recruiting and all the things that need to be done there? Are you going to defend the law of this country? Those things matter to me, and so those are the kind of questions I ask.
So after we have the convention,
right,
and we're 60 days away from the general election,
probably usually a little more than that.
All right, you think you would be? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you say if our nominee and his vice president also came out and named not likely people, this person that job, this person that job.
Yeah.
That would not be a negative as they move forward.
I don't see it as a negative, but it depends on who it is. I mean, if there's a person who has a strong personality and knows that it's going to be a leader, and that you're going to bring great people in behind them, I think it'll work. There are some people who might get the nomination that I would be suspicious.
Okay. All right, Tom, you got a question because not only are you a professor of economics at Morningside College and a former senatorial candidate, but you were also an Air Force pilot.
Yes, I'm a retired full colonel from the United States Air Force. I was a fighter pilot.
All right.
Well, in regards to that, I heard a report just the other day, Sam, that said that the number of sorties that are taking place result in a very small percentage of bombings that take place. Now, the idea of the report that I read said that the Obama administration had put such rules of engagement on so stringent, and of course the ISIS and the terrorists have the normal tactic of using the citizens as a shield, and so we were not engaging them, and the idea that we were going to defeat them by these strategic pinpoint strikes, and yet so many of them are resulting. It reminds me a little bit of the Johnson administration, where he and McNamara micromanaged the Vietnam War to the point that we did as much damage psychologically and financially to the country as we could possibly do. This reminds me a little bit of that. I want to get your take because of your qualifications.
Well, I think one thing is we're talking about the. I think on average, on a typical day, we launch 24 fighter sorties with bombs to go out and do essentially close air support for ISIS that are engaged with friendly troops. Close air support is a very difficult mission, and particularly in a fast mover like the F-16. And one of the things that's happened is that once a target is identified, and it's typically identified by the pilot, that say, hey, we have a potential target, and then the target clearing process, which is suspicious in this area, takes forever and sometimes hours, and if that's the case, then the pilot has to return home, and he or she comes home with their bombs. What we don't have the infrastructure there to do close air support.
You're talking about boots on the ground?
Boots on the ground, air liaison officers, people who can designate targets, people who can identify targets. We don't have the reconnaissance vehicles in place to provide us the targeting information that can be handed off electronically or verbally to pilots. We have a typical what we call a 9-liner, and it's a script that we get in the cockpit. You literally, I've done it right on the windscreen with a grease pencil, and so you have it right there for you, and you can go in there. And with our equipment today, you can go in and pinpoint an initial point. You can pinpoint the target. You have direct access or direct steerage to the target, and then you can go up and in and drop bombs. Or you can use some of our smart bombs today, the JDAM and some of those. But the effectiveness is much greater if you have that system in place, and right now that system is not in place.
If I make you president right today, Sam, what do you do with that Mideast situation that we're not doing right now?
I think the first thing I would do is if we're going to use air power to fight ISIS, let's make the commitment to do it right. Let's get the equipment and all that over there. And it doesn't take a lot of people. It just takes the will to do it.
Give me a number. They're talking about 400 now.
450 trainers. That's to train troops, and that's probably, that's a start. The thing I don't want to do, and I really don't, is I don't think, I don't know if we have time to answer this. I will tell you this. I want to refer people to read George Kennan, who was one of the wise men of the Cold War. Read George Kennan. I have started this process again because it's about containment. And I really think that's the approach that we ought to take. We ought to dust that off. We ought to learn to contain radical Islam. And I think we're going to be on the right path there. And that does not include boots on the ground. There are ways to do that.
Sam Clovis, I appreciate you listening. Or not listening. Well, you did listen. Appreciate you being here today. You're always welcome. And I hope you come back again. Thank you very, very much.
Well, it's an honor to be here with both of you. It really is.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Tom, thanks for being here today.
Pleasure.
We'll see you tomorrow at this very time. Steve Deace is next. Until then, think of somebody you need to forgive. Think of somebody you should forgive. And tonight on your knees, give that resentment and forgive. And it's that way that you forgive, you will be forgiven. I'll see you in church.